Okay, we are up on video too, so I'll set this timer here and we'll get started. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show at 910 KINA Salina, bringing you innovative talk radio that surprises, entertains, and sometimes informs you. I have two very interesting guests today. My first guest will be talking with me about an unsolved murder here in Salina, and this does happen to be her sister, so obviously very, very emotional, touching conversation we're going to have. And then my second guest will come in and talk about the fact that her mother has been jailed for murdering her father when she was just 7 years old. So we have some very riveting, interesting guests this morning. My first guest, as I introduced here, is Maria Marcotte. And welcome, Maria. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And I just wanted to maybe just start out with letting you kind of tell me a little bit about, what happened. Because if I understand this, your sister Gina was murdered December 28th, 1995. It's been a little while, but this is very much in the forefront of you and your family's emotions and feelings. So tell us what happened that day.
Well, it'll be 16 years this Christmas. And it was, actually it was a long day. I think it was about 9 o'clock. Well, actually, probably it was in the afternoon, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I had gotten a call at work. My husband had called and left a message for me to come home. And came home, and there were 2 investigators, I believe, had called, had actually came to the house. I'm sorry, I'm nervous.
No,
and,
that's okay.
Asked if I would come home, so I got home. They were there and visited with us and had approached me and told me that my sister was found by her boyfriend. And
this was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you said. And so they're thinking she had been found close to the time they contacted you, or?
No, they had actually been at the house for quite a while.
At your sister's house?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she had been found by her boyfriend, who then reported through 911. And they predicted that she had been gone. She had been there for probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half, I believe.
So she had been murdered, and before her boyfriend found her and reported her, it had been about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think.
So was that like mid-morning, sort of?
Yes.
Mid-morning.
Yes.
Interesting.
And she was supposed to have been picked up about 11:30, I believe. And she, at Mother's Day out, and they had called and reported to the boyfriend that she had not been picked up. And so he then borrowed a vehicle and went home and found her. That's how he found her. And then they had stopped by. Of course, my husband was home with our child who had been ill, so then that's how I got contacted and went home. And then I then later had to go by and pick up her son from Mother's Day out.
How old was her son at the time?
Just over a year old.
Oh, just an infant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he has never got to know her.
No.
Which is unfortunate. He's would be just turned 17. So.
Right.
And
so emotional, just such an emotional moment. It's almost heartbreaking for me to even ask you some of this, because I see the emotion on your face as you even relay some of the information. Did I ask you yet how old your sister was when this happened? She had a 1-year-old baby, and how old was she?
24.
She was just 24. Oh my goodness. Now, how many siblings are in your family?
I'm the oldest, 2 brothers, and she's the youngest.
So there were 4 of you. So you have a fairly good-sized family that lost someone in this incredibly tragic, difficult way. So you found out because they came to the house. Was that it? They didn't call. They came and approached your husband, and they wanted to talk to you.
Yes, they had asked, if she had been in contact with anybody that we may have thought that possibly could have done this for any reason, and So, you know, we had to, you know, I felt pressured into thinking of something right away and could not. They asked about the boyfriend, anybody else we may have known. At the time, I didn't feel that he would have. They had a child together, and I had no reason
Oh, so
to
the
believe
baby
that.
was his as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And fortunately, you know, during that time, the child was not there. So we were very fortunate that, you know, that had not happened, that he had not witnessed anything.
So the police are kind of pressuring you, and I understand, I've seen those shows 48 Hours. They say that the sooner you get on the case, the better chance of solving the murder. But what were you feeling? You had to be going through some intense emotions.
Right. I first had to get over the fact that they were trying to tell me this, and then trying to come up with information. It's
Like
hard.
shock,
Yes.
just almost shock. But then your
Yes.
mind is being said, okay, obviously you want to do all you can to help solve this or find who did this. But then, you're just in such shock. I can imagine that, it's hard to even start to think clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So this was all happening with just you and your husband at your home. And what impact and what was some of the other reaction of the family? How did they hear?
Well, both of our families were originally from Concordia. So just happening 3 days after Christmas, I had to get on the phone and try to find everybody, locate everybody. So I hurriedly, after they left, got on the phone and tried to locate my parents. And that was back when you had the bag phones in your car. You didn't have the cell phones. And after I called all over town in Concordia, I thought quickly that I bet they're on their way down here to go shopping. So I got a hold of them. They were 20 minutes away from town, and I had to compose myself and let them know, why don't you stop by my house right away? Well, one of the questions was, I think, why aren't you at work? I said, well, just stop by home. I need to visit with you. So they did, but during that period of time, the 20 minutes, I had to leave my house, pick up the child, and come back. And in the meantime, I called.
Now pick up your sister's baby?
Yes.
Okay.
I had to pick up James. And also, I called the church, the Catholic Church, to see if they could send a priest over so they could help me tell my parents. And I was hoping I could get all that done in 20 minutes because I knew that they'd probably beat me there. And so my husband stayed at the house, and I did not make it. So my husband and the priest were trying to, let them know, and they were kind of in shock, of course in shock themselves, trying to hear that, and my husband had to repeat it a couple times before they realized it. And then I came in with the child, and it was a long emotional day. Surreal.
I'm sure it was in some ways just surreal. Like, is this a dream? And very good that you had some, the Catholic priest, like you said, which is your faith, to be there to assist you. And what a task for you, being the oldest sibling in the family, to have to tell your own parents.
Right.
And now the police were not there at that time.
No. They went on back to the scene and explained to us, my husband and I, what they had planned to do. I also felt unfortunate or uncomfortable or sorry for, I guess, the priest, because he had just become a priest, and this was the first time he had ever had to deal with something like that. So I also felt kind of, sorry for him, I guess. But
yeah, what an indoctrination into being a new young priest to have to deal with something like this, which isn't even all that common, thankfully, here in Salina.
Yeah.
And I would think your family would be somewhat shocked that this even happened. So tell us a little bit more about how the investigation proceeded and some of what they might have kind of uncovered or found out, and leading, of course, to why you might think that this has never been solved. It's just one of those things that, that's been many years ago. And did you feel that there was a lot of activity with trying to get this solved in the first months or years? And then, of course, it's been, 16 years ago, so it's died out. Was there a lot of intensity to begin with?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of intensity in the beginning, but I think, you know, and we, of course, as a family, would go back and what have you heard, what have you found out, this is what we know, can you build anything from that, and I think they were trying to tell us as much as they could, but it seemed like over a period of time, especially after 2 years, it felt like they just kind of, it just fizzled out.
After 2 years.
Yeah, it seemed like over a period of two years, you know. And then we kind of were hearing just the same thing. And I don't know if it was just to let it, you know, pacify us or what, but it just didn't seem like it would change any.
There wasn't anything new or fresh that you were
Right.
hearing
Right.
or sensing that there was still, you know, some good leads they had even to work on.
Right. And then I think it was at the end of 2 years, the governor came forward with a $5,000 reward.
For your sister's
Right,
murder?
for the murder. And so, you know, that was kind of an uplifting thing.
And you were saying that is still available today.
Yes.
So if anyone, you know, has anything to bring forward, that $5,000 is still out there.
Yes, it is. So I hope that
That's pretty important.
yes.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm sure that that would be there until something comes forward or someone comes forward. And then I think, I don't remember, it might have been 5 years, 6 years maybe, we had a bulletin board that was on Crawford that showed her picture. And I think it was also, it was shared with whom we call the Legs Lady. I think it was Catherine Adams. The board was shared with her on it. I think it was labeled Unsolved Crimes.
Mhm.
And then both of them were up there. So it was kind of nice to have that. It was brought out again.
Some more visibility.
Yeah, with her picture there and to refresh people's minds. But there was nothing that I know of or that I'm aware of that came from that. So it was nice to have that, but again, there was nothing that had come from that. But other than that, there's really not been anything.
And you had an article in the paper, you said, that you had some exposure with that. When was that done?
That was, I think, within the first year and a half.
Oh, that was very early
Yeah,
on.
was
So
very
we're to
early.
get to 6 years after,
Mhm.
and now 16 years, and things have really seemed to die out.
Yeah, there's not been anything that shows any hope anyway.
Mhm.
And so I think there's someone out there that knows something but not coming forward. And if the person that has done it or someone that knows that's not willing to bring it forward, you know, I feel if they could just come forward with it and redeem themselves, or it would just, I think it's important. For me, I would just like to know the reason why they felt they had to do this. She was a beautiful person.
I can imagine that question of why. Why my
Mhm.
sister? Why my daughter? You know, why this baby's mother? I can imagine, you know, the why of that. And again, you know, maybe, you know, someone knowing or someone having a piece of conscience that might be able to come forward. Certainly with the $5,000 reward out there that is still active, we can get some interest in looking further or deeper at this case. And we're going to need to take a short break here. But I want all of our listeners to stay tuned. We're going to have some more here about the unsolved murder here in Salina with Maria. And stay on the Joan Jerkovich Show, and you can go to joanjerkovich.com to watch the video outtakes, podcasting, and even find links to iTunes. You're listening to the Joan Jerkovich Show on 910 KINA Salina. See how fast it goes? It's going to be half. You're fine.
I know, in the beginning I froze.
No, you're fine. I really, you know, appreciated your verbal cues. But I jump right in, you know. That's one of the things I've been criticized in some situations for being too talkative and chatty and talking over people, but in this situation, that's exactly when it comes into play. Did you think we hit on a lot of the things we wanted to? We talked about, you know, just to set the stage,